Winston? Winston? Come back with that leg of lamb.
As soon as the cold weather hits, we all rush for our chicken and dumplings recipe. It's nourishing, it's comfort food, and it brings back memories of happy times growing up. Chicken and dumplings is a classic dish, and there are so many different versions of this recipe. Some recipes, you'll start with an old rooster, a boiler, and cook the whole chicken, and that makes your chicken broth. And then from there, you can start adding your vegetables and things too. Other recipes, they just use the chicken breast, and some people just like to use the chicken thigh in there. We all have our own version of chicken and dumplings. I'm going to use chicken breast and start the vegetables. When you're working on a chopping board, a cutting board, often they'll be sliding around, moving around as you're cutting away, and that can be dangerous. The secret chef's trick is to get some paper towel and fold it, and then wet it, and then put underneath. Then you put the board on top, and it stops it slipping. Now, I was super excited to find this thing. It's called they're called board buddies, and they're made by Mercer. They're silicone. They're like $10. I put a link in the description below so you can get one too. But you pop that on the table and then put the board on top. Now this board's going nowhere. Why didn't they have these when I was at the palace? Oh my goodness. So we'll start off with the vegetables and we'll peel the carrots. Using a speed peeler, you've probably got one of these at home, but if you haven't, then okay, link in the description. I know some of you are going to want one. Again, they're only a few dollars. But when you're peeling with them, you slide up and down the carrot. Look, slow motion. Up and down the carrot. And you turn the carrot from the top. But you don't let the peeler leave the carrot. Slice the onions nice and fine too. The celery and the carrots need to go in just bite-sized pieces. My version, I like to saute the vegetables first. The carrots, the onions, the celery, a little thyme, some salt and pepper. Give them a good stir in the pan. Then I can add some thyme, a little salt, and some pepper. Once the vegetables have started to sweat a little bit, then I can add a good chicken broth. I want plenty in there because I'm going to add the chicken in just a minute. When it comes to chickens, not all chickens are created equal. What's the chicken doing in my kitchen? A chicken in my kitchen? I wonder where Winston is today. Nowadays, chicken is really cheap, and so to make this dish, or any chicken dish, is quite cheap for a midweek meal. But pre-1950s, chicken was quite expensive. In fact, it was more expensive than beefsteak. People bred chickens just for the eggs. And once the chicken had stopped producing, then that old rooster was thrown into the pot, boiled for a week or two, not quite, but then that's when they would use the chicken, the boiled chicken, for chicken and dumplings. With industrialized farming, which started about 1950s, chickens were much, much cheaper, but it came with a price, white stripe. When you get chickens in the store today, if you look closely on the chicken, you'll see stripes of white in the protein, in the muscle. Producers today, genetically modified, are producing the chickens twice the size, but in half the time. And it changes the texture. It's not as good. I mean, you can still eat it, but if you look at the chicken here, you'll see the two chicken breasts. This one is the genetically modified. And look at those thin layers, those thin white stripes. 85% of all supermarket chickens now have these. I mean, you can still eat it, but look at this fresh, organic chicken breast there. Much, much nicer, much more flavorsome. I mean, this one, really? Any more white stripe in there, in this breast, it would be sent away to make things like chicken nuggets, sausage, burgers, that sort of thing. Chefs are not magicians, so always go with something as beautiful as an organic chicken breast. Once my vegetables have started to come to the boil, then I can add my chicken breasts. Now, again, you can dice the chicken if you want to and put it in, but I always find it much better to actually put the chicken breasts in, boneless, skinless, like this, and then let them just simmer away. Once they're cooked, we'll take them out and cut them into little bite-sized pieces. Turn it down now and let it simmer for about 20 minutes. While the chicken's cooking, I can start making the dumplings. There's so many different variations of dumplings. There's the fluffy biscuit dumplings. There's the rolled noodle type dumplings. Which is the correct way? Well, you know what? There isn't a correct way. It's whichever you prefer. Your recipe is the correct way. Which is the best way? Now, that's different. The way I make them, my favorite, is the traditional way. And dumplings date back to the 1600s. Over in Europe, we used to use suet. Now, suet, really hard to find. Link in the description below. But if you don't want to get it, then you don't have to. You can make your baking powder ones or your rolled dumplings, however you want to make them. But dumplings with suet, oh, it takes me back to my childhood. My grandmother, my mother would actually make dumplings. They made dumplings with beef. We'd have stew and dumplings. Suet is actually the fat that comes around, encased all the way around the kidneys on the cow. And it's tough, it's firm, and it's grated, and it just makes absolute perfection in the dumplings. You start off with some flour, self-rising flour. Add the suet in there and just rub it in a little bit. All you're going to do then is add some salt and a little water, and then you can make the balls. Don't make the mistake of using all-purpose flour, because you need to get them to rise, and that's what the baking powder does in there. Rub that suet into the mix, and then we'll add the water and the salt. I just want enough water in there to bring these dumplings together. I don't want them too dry, so I leave flour in the bottom, and I don't want them too soggy so that we can't form them into balls. There we go, we can form it into a nice ball, and now we can shape those into some dumplings. Don't make the dumplings too big, because the baking powder is going to make them expand anyway, and we don't want sort of something this size. And don't roll them too tight either. That baking powder is already starting to work, and we don't want to crush that down. I remember as a little boy, my grandmother making these. I'd go and visit her one day, lunchtimes from school. She'd be cooking chicken and dumplings or stew and dumplings, always dumplings. I'd walk in the door and the whole kitchen was steamed up, and my nan was there sweating away making these dumplings. I remember she'd carry them to the table on a plate like this, and there were so many that she had to use two hands. Happy memories. So try and get them all the same size. If you want to be adventurous, you can add some chopped herbs into this as well, some thyme, some fresh parsley even. You can put some cheese in there. I've even seen them done with cooked sausage meat. Just the sausage in there cooking away with the vegetables. You don't have to have the chicken or meat or anything. The meat's actually in the dumplings. Ready to go in with the chicken and vegetables. Once the chicken's cooked, we take them out into a bowl. Strain off the vegetables, but save that gorgeous chicken broth underneath, because that's going to make our sauce. The chicken, we'll take it and cut it into little bite-sized portions. It's so tender, it's so moist, it's so juicy, it's just been cooking away in that chicken broth. Look at that, absolutely perfect. This is why I prefer to not cut it up to begin with. Look at that, gorgeous. The vegetables back in with the chicken. And the sauce, we're just going to thicken it with some butter and flour. Melt the butter, but I want to brown it a little bit as well. It makes a noisette, a nutty flavor. And then I can add some flour in there. Stir in the flour. And make sure that all comes together. Then I'm going to add my chicken broth. smells amazing. The chicken broth is all combined. I'm going to add a little cream just for that richness. And then the chicken and vegetables can go back into the broth. The sauce has to come back to the boil before you put the dumplings in. Once it comes to the boil, then we can start dropping our dumplings. Spread them apart because they are going to rise a little bit. And then pop a lid on and turn it down low. The dumplings need to simmer for about 5 minutes, and then, oh, look at those. And then we carefully dig in and turn them upside down and let them cook the other side for about 3 or 4 minutes. And pop the lid back on. Steamy, hot, rich chicken and dumplings in a creamy sauce. All those vegetables in there as well. I think we can all agree that there is no set chicken and dumplings recipe. But I want to know what your recipe is. Leave a comment below and tell me. I'm really interested in how you make them. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And tell all your friends. Tell them about the chicken and dumplings. And how many times have I said chicken and dumplings? But now we've got to try it. A little parsley on the top just to finish it off makes it absolutely amazing. Winston's joined us just in time for some chicken. Oh, look at that. It smells amazing. Those fluffy dumplings with the suet in there. See you again soon.